There's an ugly rumor going around that English professors have dirty minds. It's not true, of course. We're no more dirty minded than society at large, although that may not be of any great comfort. Well, let me assure you that English professors are not innately prurient. It's just that they can recognize the sexual intentions of writers who may well have dirty minds. So, how did all this smutty thinking find its way into world literature? Blame it on Freud, he put it there. More accurately, he found it and showed it to the rest of us. When he published the Interpretations of Dreams in 1900, he unlocked the sexual potential of the subconscious. Tall buildings? Male sexuality. Rolling landscapes? Female sexuality. Stairs? Sexual intercourse. Falling downstairs? Oh my. All this may be regarded these days as so much hokum in the arena of psychoanalysis, but it's like gold in terms of literary analysis. Suddenly, we discover that sex doesn't have to look like sex. Other objects and activities can stand in for sexual organs and sex acts, which is good, since those organs and acts can only be arranged in so many ways and are not inevitably decorous. So, landscapes can have a sexual component. So can bowls, fires, seashores, and 1949 Plymouths, one supposes. Virtually anything if the writer decides. Oh, yes, Freud taught us well, and some of those he taught are writers. Suddenly, as the 20th century gets rolling, two things are happening. Critics and readers are learning that sexuality may be encoded in their reading, while writers are learning that they can encode sexuality in their writing. Headaches, anyone? Of course, the 20th century didn't invent sexual symbolism. Consider the Grail legends. A knight, usually a very young one whose manhood is barely established, sallies forth bearing his lance, which will certainly do until a phallic symbol comes along. The knight becomes the emblem of pure, if untested, maleness in search of a chalice, the Holy Grail, which, if you think about it, is a symbol of female sexuality as understood once upon a time, the empty vessel waiting to be filled. And the reason for seeking to bring together the lance and the chalice? Fertility. Freud gets help here from Jesse L. Weston, Sir James Frazer, and Carl Jung, all of whom explain a great deal about the mythic thinking, fertility myths, and archetypes. Typically, the knight rides out from a community that has fallen on hard times. Crops are failing, rains have stopped, livestock and possibly humans are dying or failing to be born. The kingdom is turning into a wasteland. We need to restore fertility and order, says the aging king, who, too, is now too old to go in search of fertility symbols. Flash forward a millennium or so, hang a left in New York, and go to Hollywood. There's a moment in The Maltese Falcon, 1941, when Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade, at night, is leaning over Mary Astor's Bridget O'Shaughnessy, kissing her by a window, and then the next moment, we're looking at the curtains of the window, blowing gently in the morning sunlight. No Sam, no Bridget. Young viewers sometimes don't notice those curtains, so they want to know what happened between Sam and Bridget. It may seem a small detail, but it matters greatly that we understand so that we can see how much Sam's judgment may be compromised and how difficult turning her in at the end is going to be. For those who remember a time when the movies not only didn't show people doing it, they also didn't show people having done it or talking about having done it. Those curtains might as well bear the following printed legend. Yes, they did, and they enjoyed it. For people of that age, one of the sexiest shots in film consists of waves breaking on a beach. When the director cut to the waves on the beach, somebody was getting lucky. These abstractions were necessary under the Hays Code, which controlled content in Hollywood films around 1935 until 1965, more or less, throughout the height of the studio system. The Hays Code said a lot of different things, but the one we're interested in was that you could stack bodies like cork would if they were dead, although usually without blood, but living bodies couldn't get horizontal together. Husbands and wives were nearly always shown in separate beds. I noticed this once more the other night when I watched Hitchcock's Notorious, where Claude Rains and Ingrid Bergman have twin beds. The man has never been born who, finding himself married to Ingrid Bergman, would assent to sleeping in twin beds. Even an evil Nazi like Claude Rains. But in the movies in 1946, that's what happened. So film directors resorted to anything they could think of. Waves, curtains, campfires, fireworks, you name it. Okay, you say, but that's film. What about books? I barely know where to begin. Let's try something tame first. Anne Beatty's story, Janus. A young woman, married but not particularly in love with her husband, has had an affair with another man, the only tangible result of which is a bowl the lover bought for her. The woman, Andrea, comes more and more to identify with the bowl and to obsess over it. She's a real estate agent, and she often places the bowl in a prominent place in clients' houses before she shows them. She gets up at night to check on it and make sure it's all right, and most tellingly, she will not permit her husband to put his keys in her bowl. Do you see the sexuality embedded in that set of images? How do keys work? Whose keys are they? Where can he not put them? Whose talisman is the bowl he can't put them in? Consider, for instance, that Hank Williams George Thorogood classic, Move It On Over, and the complaint about his lady changing locks and leaving him with a key that no longer fits. Every American should know enough of the blues to understand exactly what keys and locks signify and to blush when they're referred to. The pattern of imagery is just part of the much older tradition identified by Freud, Weston, Fraser, and Young about lances and swords and guns and keys as phallic symbols, and chalices and grails and bowls, of course, as symbols of female sexual organs. Back to Andrea's bowl. It really is about sex. Specifically, it's about her identity as a woman, an individual, and a sexual being, rather than as an extension of a lover or a husband. She fears being merely an auxiliary of some man's existence, although her autonomy, as symbolized by the bowl, is made problematic by its having been purchased for her by a man. He only buys it, though, after seeing that she really connects with the bowl, so it really is hers in the end. I am skipping a lot of this chapter since I'm sharing it publicly. Why? Part of the reason for all this disguised sex is that historically, writers and artists couldn't make much use of the real thing. D.H. Lawrence, for instance, had numerous novels suppressed and undertook a monumental battle with the British censors, same as in film. Another reason is that scenes in which sex is coded rather than explicit can work at multiple levels and sometimes be more intense than literal depictions. Those multiple levels have traditionally been to protect innocence. Dickens, who could be very suggestive, was aware that his novels were often read around the family breakfast table, and he wanted to protect children from anything luridly sexual, as well as provide wives with plausible deniability. With the scene of encoded sex, mother could pretend not to notice that something untoward was going on, while father was enjoying his private smirk. Even in our highly permissive age, though, sex often doesn't appear in its own guise. It is displaced into other areas of experience in much the same way it is in our own lives and our own consciousnesses. Anne Beatty's character Andrea doesn't think of her problem of being chiefly sexual or romantic, but they are, as we and her creator can see. So it's unlikely that her sexual issues will present themselves in terms of sexual organs and acts. Much more likely they'll look like a bowl and some keys.